Hi everybody, it's Wendy Perry here, and I'm the Managing Director of Workforce Blueprint and also the Entrepreneurship Facilitator for Adelaide in South Australia with Switch Start Scout. And today it's my great pleasure to say that we've got Lee LeFever online all the way from Washington. The session's being recorded to say hi to people that are watching it afterwards, and we'll share that on socials and to the list of people that registered as well. We're just using the question chat box. If you want to do a little bit of networking, say hi, share your LinkedIn profile, that'd be great. And in a minute, I'll get Lee to introduce himself, but a little bit of background. And, like over summer, you have like a goal to read a couple of books, to kind of get refreshed and inspired and, to take all of that into the new year with you, particularly when you're running your own business. So Big Enough is one of the books, probably the main one that I read over the summer kind of break. And it really rang true to me because there is this constant chat about growing your business, scaling it up, where to next. And there's also probably a bit of a level of guilt or, concern or worry about whether or not you've got your business to where you should. And most of the time, you're your harshest critic on that as well. And we're going to have a little bit of a chat today. It's really open sort of format and casual type conversation. So feel free to join in, and if you want to ask a question, you can do that via the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well. But Lee, may I ask if you could introduce yourself? And some people might not have read your book just yet or heard of you, so a little bit of background would be awesome. Thank you.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, everyone. It's nice to talk to everyone down under. I visited a couple of times. I love Australia. So I live on the west coast of the United States, off of Washington State. So obviously, there's another Washington. I prefer not to be associated with that Washington. This is the other Washington on the west coast. So I am the co-founder of a company called Common Craft. My other co-founder is my wife, and we work together from home, and we've done that since 2007. And how we got started was back in that day, social media was a big deal and people were confused, and we started making these little animated videos that explained social media in a way that sort of normal people could understand. It wasn't meant for technology. It was more, we said it was for our parents, and we put those videos on YouTube as just something fun to do, and they ended up changing our lives. And suddenly we became video producers and became known as being pioneers of a new way of explaining ideas using paper cutouts on a whiteboard. And that's kind of the Common Craft brand became known as for producing these videos that became very popular at the time. And we didn't have any experience in video production. In fact, Sachi was fresh out of school for getting her MBA, and we're entrepreneurial people. And we really took a different sort of approach to what do we do with this opportunity. We have a lot of demand coming to us, people that want to hire us to make videos for their company. We're making our original videos, which is videos that we own the copyright to. What do we do with it? And early on, we decided that we wanted to design the business to earn a living for us and help and make sure that we solve a problem and help people and earn income, but also look after the things that matter to us on the personal side, like our lifestyle and our relationship and our health. So early on, we decided not to have employees. And starting in 2008, we designed Common Craft around the idea that we were always going to be a two-person company and experiment with all kinds of ways to earn a living with two people working from home. And Big Enough really shares the results of those experiments. And we learned a lot about how to use the web and the internet to be able to sell products that you create yourselves to the global market, and how to do that in a way that's scalable and protects whatever lifestyle you want to have. And that's really why I wrote the book, is I think that new things are possible, and I wanted to share what we learned through that period.
Yeah, so it goes back a little way, and I guess, when you were first doing those cutout kind of images and that became your brand, can you tell us about how that did get kind of interest and traction, and then who was interested? Because when I was reading the book, I'm like, oh my goodness, like you're working with some massive brand names as well.
Yeah, that's right. When we put those first videos online, it didn't take but a month or so for demand to start coming to us to make videos. And one of the first videos we made was for Google, and we made a video that you can find on YouTube right now called Google Docs in Plain English. And it's a little bit embarrassing for me because it was a very early video, so I look at it and cringe. But it's a good example of our work back then. We eventually worked with Ford and Lego, and Dropbox was a video we made with Dropbox was on the front page of their website for a few years because you're probably familiar with Dropbox, but it's a product that once you get the big idea, it's obvious, but it's not something that's easy to understand right off the bat. So a video was used to help introduce people to their product. So we were being hired, but we also we got started making original videos that weren't for a company. They were just videos that we thought would be helpful. And they explained things like wikis and blogs and social networking. And what we found was that educators like librarians and teachers wanted access to be able to download those videos and use them in presentations and classrooms. And that really led us to the idea that we could make videos that we could license to individuals and organizations. And that's really where things started to change for us on the business side, was understanding that we had a choice between being hired or creating our own content and selling that content through our website. So that's really where the Big Enough story sort of really changes, is once we start experimenting with licensing.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask you as well, like how did a two-person business get such a big name client? Like how did you actually, I know they could have reached out to you perhaps, but how did you, potentially market yourself or get network to those people and get referrals and so on?
Yeah. In the case of Dropbox, for example, we had also worked with LinkedIn when LinkedIn was a smaller, younger company. And I think that a lot of the San Francisco-based companies are networking wise, a lot of the same people know each other. And one of the investors in Dropbox had heard about us through our work with LinkedIn and asked, hey, would you consider talking to these guys at Dropbox? They're a company I invest in. And we talked to them soon after that. With Google, we got one of those emails that they didn't say it was Google, but we just thought it was just an interestingly written email. It was like obviously vague, but Sachi did the work to find out who it was, and we saw that, oh wow, this person is a Google employee. Could this actually be Google talking to little home-based Common Craft about a video project? And it was a really exciting time.
And then you mentioned that you sort of changed your business model because you were doing kind of like custom-made videos, and then you thought about creating your own content. Can you tell us a little bit about your hours? And I think there was some thinking, wasn't there, Lee, about how much time, energy and effort you were putting into those custom made videos, and maybe how crazy you were working versus what's a more sustainable approach?
Yeah, it's true. I think that for folks that run businesses or help businesses, it's obvious that you reach a point where your personal time, however how many people is working at the organization, if you are in a services business where you're being hired to make something, that your income is tied to the human hours that go into making that thing. And if you want to make more things, then you need more humans. So with us just being two people, we very quickly filled our queue and didn't have the resources to take on any more clients. And we realized that we could make money in the short term by doing these custom projects, but as soon as that project was done, the money stopped. So if we stopped doing projects, the money stopped coming in. And a lot of services business work that way. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we were also, as I said, making our own original videos, and realized that if we could license those, that could actually be an income stream that does extend into the future, because we own that content and we can make, I always say that copyright means the right to make copies. So if you own the copyright to something, that is sort of the core of the business, is making copies available to others. So if we make a video that explains wikis that's useful to teachers, then we can make copies of that video and sell them to teachers. And we realized that instead of video being a service where we do them one at a time, that we could make video more like software. Bill Gates, one of the richest people in the world, his fortune comes, not from making custom software, but making software that the company owns and then licensing it, which is, I call it the business of permission, like giving people permission to use that software. So we wanted to do the same thing for our videos.
Now, I imagine, working with your wife, Sachi, and yourself, you must have had some full-on conversations about, potentially this switch and saying no to the likes of Google and Ford and Lego and Dropbox. Were your clients at the time where you were making those custom videos? So can you tell me a bit about how that sort of played out?
It was a tough time because the licensing business was a pay cut. It was obvious that if we put all of our eggs in the licensing basket, that we would have to live in a much different financial world, because that couldn't support us. So we worked on the custom projects for a long time, over a few years, but slowly started to bring them down as licensing went up. And we did say no a lot, and it was hard to do at a personal level, because a lot of times it was great people and great products, but we were so convinced that this licensing model was going to work. We just needed time to do it. And I think being, married to the person who you're working with in this situation, it was good that we shared the same values. Like, we really could commit to something together and kind of keep each other motivated to stay in the game, with this dream that we could do something unique with this opportunity in creating a passive, scalable business. But it was hard to move away from that income stream that happened, after we started making the videos.
Yeah, I guess what's at the heart of the book, and I think what piqued people's interest probably is, there is this, you've got to build bigger, you've got to grow, you've got to conquer the next kind of thing. So how did you sort of reconcile, I guess, all of that sort of feedback that happens a lot in people's, startup and entrepreneurial networks, and with other books and things that they're reading, and, programs that they might be going through, or accelerators and incubators and so on, with having a business that is just big enough for you? How did you sort of that kind of reconciliation?
Yeah. I think that we had a lot of discussions about what we value. And I think that's really important, because I don't think that there is a prescription for this, that there are plenty of entrepreneurs who value working, 60 hours a week, pushing, building and growing as big as they can. And we need those people. I respect those people. Some of them are my heroes. But what I'm hoping that Big Enough does, and what I can do, is help people see that there is another version of entrepreneurship that is also respectable, that's also creative, that also has, that requires a little bit different skill set. But the biggest thing is the perspective that businesses don't always have to be the same. They don't always have to grow in the same ways. And for us, we realized that we valued income, we valued helping people, we valued, being able to earn a living, but we also valued our time, and having the choice in how we used our time. We valued our lifestyle and our health, and saw that success for us, for those values, meant that maybe we'd be willing to trade, the idea that we would be some big company for the idea that we would have actually more time than other people, or more flexibility, or more choice. That was what mattered to us in terms of how we valued success, and how we valued, what our professional lives produced for us. So I think everybody's different. That Big Enough it represents our perspective, and I hope it's a way for people to see that maybe they can look at their values and think about how those values translate into their business.
And I guess that you would have shared those values then with people that were in your network at the time, Lee, or your customers and clients or whatever, or other entrepreneurs. So, what kind of feedback or reactions did you get from people of what you were sort of, which way you were choosing to go? Because some people might have thought, well, you've got Google, like you've got some of the biggest companies in the world as clients, like what are you doing?
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. It's been a mixed bag. I think most of the people in startup world could see both sides, because I think that for a lot of people, and a lot of people on this call maybe who like I said, are involved in business and understanding business, know that it's easy to sort of have this romantic notion of what it means to run a business and be an entrepreneur. And a lot of times when entrepreneurs become successful, they get disillusioned. I think they realize that, yes, they might have this amazing opportunity and they may love the work, but they also see that they've traded it for their time or their health or their lifestyle. And maybe they're not seeing their kids, or maybe they're not able to take vacations, or they're working on weekends. And I think that people are starting to see that, yeah, maybe there's a choice. Maybe that there is a way to think about their work and entrepreneurship from a perspective that doesn't require the baggage. So some people will never understand it. It's just not a part of the way they look at the world. But I think there's a growing number of people who can see why we'd want to do such a thing.
Yeah, and I've got a question here. So if anyone's got any questions, feel free to put them into the question chat box or send them to me. If you want me to relay them. So this is something that comes up all the time. This imposter syndrome, whether or not you're good enough. Who are you to sort of be the expert? You mentioned that when you started the business, you didn't have, experience in the video production, yet, your videos have become some of the most watched in the whole entire world. So has that been something that's popped up for you and for Sachi, that, imposter syndrome, and how do you kind of deal with it?
Yeah, as I mentioned, and you said, we started making videos without having any education in making videos. And I, from the very beginning, once we started getting hired, I thought like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world, there's a whole industry of video production that I don't understand. And I had this whole thought process of, should I understand it or not? Like, do I need that information? And I started to think of it from a different perspective, where the videos those first videos that we made were purely an experiment that we just used whatever we had handy and just did what we thought felt natural. And I think that was the secret sauce, was just trying to create something based on whatever we had at the time. I think had we stopped and said, let's go take some classes, let's read some books, let's understand video production, that would have gotten in the way. And that it might have kept us from focusing on what the videos really did, which was communicate an idea clearly. And I started to see that the production was just this skill that we could learn enough for what we needed, but our jobs, like the value, if you boil down everything we do, it's about writing and communication. And that's where we saw us being able to compete or to be able to build something was not in how good we were with a camera, it was how good we are with words. And I think that's something that I would encourage people to do, is not think about just the tools, but what is it about you? Like, what is it that you do that you can feel confident about? And that's kind of where I came down, was we're writers. The video thing, there's a whole world of that. We can do enough to get by on that. We're going to focus on the words.
Yeah, and probably that thing about making things simple, that's obviously key in what you're doing too, which, is can be really hard to do. But I wondered if you could take us a bit more back through that evolution of your business model. So the custom-made videos for those massive companies, then you were, this idea about licensing videos and perhaps more in an education type space, and maybe a bit about where the business is at now too.
Yeah, sure. So Common Craft has gone through a lot of ups and downs, a lot of different business models. And because I think along with being entrepreneurial and having a lot of ideas, we always felt like that things are always changing. Like, it's almost like the chaos in the universe applied to a business, that you might be doing well one month and poorly the next month or the next year. So being a two-person company allowed us to be agile. So if we saw a change coming, we could very quickly change to react to it. And oftentimes that meant working with our competitors or seeing things not as opportunities, but as threats. So one of the examples was when explainer video started to get more popular, more and more video producers started to put it on their website. Like, hey, we make explainer videos too. And, being a two-person company, we could see that these are our competitors now. If they get bigger, they can, eat our lunch, so to speak. So instead of seeing them as competition and fighting against them, we used our first mover advantage, because we were known for being the people that started this, and went out to those producers and said, hey, I know we're competitors, kind of, but we're getting a lot of demand to us for custom videos that we can't serve. If you pay us a monthly fee, we'll add a listing for your company on our website. And then when demand comes in, we'll point them to you. And that created a little marketplace we called the Explainer Network. And for 6 or 8 years, that was a major contributor to our income, was having this marketplace that connected leads to companies that were essentially our competitors. But for a small company like us, it fit perfectly in the little box we created around Common Craft, it was the constraints of our business. And that was one of the examples. We've also, because we own our content, we started to offer our visuals, which we call cutouts. The original Common Craft characters were cut out pieces of paper. And so over time, a side or a product of making every video was having a new set of cutouts. So we had thousands of them, and we started to digitize them and eventually license those through our website to Common Craft members who can use them to create their own videos. So there's two things there that I think are a little bit hard for some people to conceptualize in terms of entrepreneurship. Is we were working with our competition instead of competing against them. And then we're actually sharing our look and feel with people and saying, yes, you can make videos just like ours. And I think that, some people would say, look, that's not going to work. They're going to confuse people and everything else. But I think, again, being a small company, we love experimenting, and we are agile enough to be able to react to things over time.
So I guess you turn those producers that were sort of saying, yep, hey, we're doing explainer videos as well, kind of a bit like into your workforce, sort of. And how big did that kind of get? And you mentioned that it lasts for about 6 or 8 years. Was there then something that changed again that, was we need to shift to something different?
Yeah. We got up to 9 producers in the network. And the Explainer Network worked as long as there was traffic coming to our website, demand for custom videos. So when we made our original videos, our licensing model, our priority, then it was less of a visible thing about Common Craft. So there was a little bit there, but the big thing that happened is that the market for custom videos suddenly became more global. And a lot of producers around the world who could produce videos for, a 1/10 of the price compared to these mainly American producers, really introduced a different option for a lot of the demand, where they could work with someone in Indonesia or someone in, around the world. So that the market really changed because of that, because it got so widespread that there were just a lot more options out there. And I think that the market just matured, I guess.
Okay, well, we'll come back to what you did as a result of that in a minute, but I've got a question here, and it's about competition. So it says, my competitors are also a good source of work. So how do you balance the values there, which you may have some common values, but some different? And the second part of it is, you may be unsure about the quality of the work. So how do you make sure that you're comfortable to refer? And how do you get out in that explainer, kind of network?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that was something that I personally struggled with a lot. I tried to do the best vetting I could in terms of adding new members to the network. I wanted to see that they had a team, that they had experience, that they had a good customer list, that they had done good work, and also that they actually understood that explainer videos are a different thing. It's not just about selling better. It's about education. It's about this perspective that, talking about the big picture and context. But we also made it clear on our website that we were just a referral service, that we're not necessarily certifying these producers as Common Craft certified explainers. We took a quite hands-off approach to that and just said, contact them, talk to them. We're just giving you the lead. So we tried to stay out of that relationship as much as possible and let them kind of let the leads, look at the listings and get a feel for what was there versus, favoring one producer over another. So it was always a challenge.
And I think this question could also be coming from putting themselves in the shoes of the, people that you're referring to, and, check back on if you're kind of the one that's getting the work or almost like the subcontractor, how do you make sure that there's that kind of alignment? And sometimes you might be competing against them, pitching for your own work or putting in your own proposals versus under the banner of another group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not totally clear if I understand the question there.
I guess the question is, did you get any feedback from those people that were in that explainer video network?
Yeah. How
they go about getting their own work versus work with you, and when is
it? Yeah, it was it was difficult to manage because ultimately it's all happening on our website, and any change that we make on the website could impact their business because they're getting business from the website. So that included like adding a new producer. I thought of it like a piece of a pie, that the more you slice the pie, everyone's slice gets a little bit smaller. So in order for that to keep working, the pie's got to get bigger, which means us generating more demand for custom videos. So there were discussions about why weren't we, using advertising to point more traffic at the explainer network. I think that part of what happened there is we were not working on a revenue share agreement, because a lot of times these networks work where, because they're a part of our network, we get 10% of the revenue that comes from these relationships that get referred to us. That's very normal. But we didn't do that because we're a small company. We needed to be lightweight. So we just said flat fee, monthly fee, whatever business happens, good or bad. And I think for the most part, it was a really good deal for them because they could potentially have saved a lot of money by not sharing their revenue. So that gave us a little bit of leverage in that relationship because they were getting a good deal, and it was helping them. So they mostly kept feedback to themselves.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, Lee, what you can sort of see as you've been talking so far is that there's this evolution of your products and services and the business models, the different ones that you sort of tried out. You mentioned then, you sort of turned a lot of those copycat, producers into customers or collaborators. Then, there was another point in the market where it kind of became much more global. I'm thinking that you're talking more about freelancers and some of the other kind of platforms that opened up where you can put, and I think you can even sort of specify that you want to explain a video on some of those platforms, using your sort of language with what's come out of your original, kind of concept or idea. Mm-hmm. So when that kind of freelancer market opened up, how did you change the business then? What did you guys do next?
One of the things that we thought about was we saw things happening on the internet where there were companies that were popping up that said, hey, now anyone can create an animated video using nothing but an internet connection and a web browser. So one of those companies was called Go Animate. Now it's called Vyond, like VYOND. And there's a lot of these platforms out there. And again, we thought like, wow, this is really interesting. This democratizes video production. And how is this going to change the world in terms of explainer videos? And what we thought about was, we have these cutouts, these images that are used in our videos that we own, like we can make copies of them. I wonder if there's an opportunity to go out to these platforms and say, hey, your users could make Common Craft style videos if you license these cutouts from us. So in this situation, we saw these platforms as not a threat, but an opportunity, a business opportunity to use our intellectual property to exist in another platform and for them to have a relationship with us where they pay for permission to use those assets. And that worked in a lot of different ways. It worked on the video side and the cutouts, but there was a phase of a few years where we really went after those relationships, and it was fruitful for a while. But those relationships also come and go because every business is always changing, and it takes a lot of work to get those relationships in place. So it's a heavy lift, but the opportunity is there, and the key is that we owned our work. We made a decision to focus on building our company's intellectual property. And I think that's something that I think is really powerful for entrepreneurs, is owning that property.
Thanks, Lee. And there was a quick question just back on the Explainer Network, and then I guess also this licensing model. So, what sort of contracts did you have in place? Was that something that you had to, being a sort of small operation, did you have to get advice around that? How did that side of it work?
Yeah.
Contractual relationship, and I guess everyone would be thinking about the copyright and licensing.
Yeah. It always depended on the company we were working with. For the Explainer Network, it was a very simple relationship. They could come and go. They could, if they didn't want, it was a month to month relationship with the Explainer Network. So they could choose to stop paying and we would take their listing down. So there was no commitment on either side. We wanted it to be flexible in that way. When it came to working with partners for selling our cutouts or videos, that was where it got much more complicated, because these organizations often have lawyers and teams of people who are trying to figure out the best way to do this. And that's where the business development really comes in. And most of the time we realize that we're a small company, and that this intellectual property business doesn't really require our time. So it creates passive revenue if it works. We're actually quite flexible. We worked with them to try to find this happy medium that worked for us. And I think that's where we kind of realized that became a part of our culture at Common Craft, was to not try to squeeze every single penny out of every opportunity, and instead create relationships that were built on trust and flexibility and agility. And that those allow those relationships to be productive for us and be a good deal, I think, for our partners as well.
So Lee, I'm wondering, there might be another step or two, but the business model now, I'm not sure if there's other iterations that you want to sort of explain to before you got to what you're doing now. But
yeah.
What's the business model? And I guess a bit about who your ideal customers are. What sort of things are you doing now?
Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. Since 2012, I wrote a book called The Art. Actually, you know what? I have it right here too. I wrote a book called The Art of Explanation. Sorry for the promotion. In 2012, and it teaches explanation skills. And along with that book, we started doing Common Craft converted to be a membership service. So instead of just offering, a la carte digital downloads of our videos, members could become members of Common Craft and access our entire library and all the cutouts and everything else. So since then, Common Craft has been a membership service that's mainly used by educators, librarians, teachers, instructors, and oftentimes educators who are teaching technology or computers or even soft skills around things like study skills. So we also work with organizations like school districts. We have a number of Australian members who use the videos to explain technology. So if someone's teaching a technology lesson, a Common Craft video is often used in the beginning to sort of set the stage, because by explaining these ideas, we're talking about the big picture and the context of the idea, and that sets the stage so the instructor can then go deeper and get more detailed. So that's really the role that we play for educators. So yeah, we have both an annual plan and then also a monthly plan that's just a streaming only plan. But one of the ways that people will use the videos is to download the video files, put them in a presentation, share them on another platform. And we're always, it's like we continue to sort of evolve and look for the best ways to work with educators. But that's really that's really our sweet spot. Is serving educators.
I wonder if you could talk a bit about your marketing. Like obviously, I was working a bit in education too, and a lot of those educators talk with each other and they kind of like refer resources and things like that. So there's probably a fair bit of that word of mouth, but that's not going to be the only thing. What other sort of marketing strategies you kind of use to build that membership? And is that just, is it in all sorts of countries now?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that over time we've had customers in over 50 countries. We've seen the marketing change. I think early on we were lucky to have good, Google juice. You could find us. You still can find us very easily on search, but our video titles came up in lists more. Since then, we've lost some of that visibility. We were not the cool kids on the block. That happened within a few years. I think we've been focused lately on building our email list. One of the things that you can do at commoncraft.com is download a free video. So you put in your email address, we send you a link to download a free video. And that's been a way for us to create an email list that keeps us connected with the market a little more. So I encourage entrepreneurs of all stripes to try to find these ways to build your email list so that you just have this ongoing connection with people, that they're constantly reminded of what you're doing and what problems you're solving. We've experimented with some advertising. It's been tough. I think it really helps to have an expert to talk to about the best ways to do ads. I've done webinars a number of times, and I'm happy to share a link with the group to one I did recently that is about making simple animated videos. I think that's something that a lot of people ask about is, can you help me make a video? And there's ways to do it using presentation software like PowerPoint or Keynote that create a pretty simple way to do that. So that helps. Like we feel like anything we can do to get the name out there, the awareness. And honestly, as a two-person business, it's not easy. I don't think we're very good at it. I think that we need help, and we're in the process of. We've worked with a number of people over time, but we're always trying to find the best way to do it.
I think it might be being a little bit modest there, but definitely writing. Definitely writing books and resources is probably the other area. And in non-COVID times, were you sort of also on the speaking circuit or doing, those sort of face-to-face conferences and stuff? Or?
Yep. Yeah. Speaking, The Art of Explanation, when the book came out, that definitely put me on a path of being a public speaker, and that definitely helped a lot too. Obviously, COVID has changed that in a lot of ways, unfortunately, but hopefully we're coming out of that now, at least in the US. Thank you. You guys have done much better than us in terms of COVID.
We're very, very lucky, and we live in a great place, that's for sure. But I wondered if we could turn now to something that's a bit more that I read in the book, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to see if I can get my husband to try this out with me too. You and Sachi have this thing called the Monitorium. Can you explain what that is to everyone who's?
Sure. So it's kind of a funny word that we heard from a friend. It's like a moratorium on spending money. So a monitorium. So it started many years ago when we were preparing to take a trip and we wanted to save money to do it. And instead of just trying to agree to save money, we said, we're gonna basically flip a switch one day and go into a different lifestyle mode where we're like in the monitorium mode. And what that means is that we sort of play a game with each other about trying to find every opportunity to save money and to live more practically. So that might mean, fewer, dinners out and lattes and whatever, coffee, there's things like that. But it's also looking for opportunities to, like I said, live practically. So making your technology last longer by keeping it up to date is an example. And I came to see the Monitorium and that switch of lifestyle as almost a training exercise where there's a lot of people in the world who are forced to live in Monitorium mode. That's just the way that the economies work for a lot of people. And I recognize that. I think a lot of privileged people like myself, it's easy to lose touch with what it means to live a different lifestyle. And today in COVID times, I think that it's been a great wake-up call for people to see that suddenly their lifestyle changes. What is that like? Were they prepared to live a different lifestyle? And so the Monitorium for me became sort of training for a lifestyle that I actually came to see as the good life. Like, I think that they're it's a more responsible, healthier way to live, rather than just not having a handle on your spending and how to make things last, how to budget, that sort of thing. And I just love the idea, because part of it is like you live in that mode for a while, and then you can move out of it and move back into it if you want.
So is there sort of like a normal, a certain time frame that you do that for, or?
We've done it for a year at a time on a number of occasions. We've done this since 2005. We recently made a move away from Seattle, and the whole move process was expensive. And we said, this is a perfect time for the Monitorium. And also COVID happened, so we were stuck at home. So it actually worked out really well. We could save quite a bit of money by both not doing things with people, but also focusing on the Monitorium.
Yeah, I think that's particularly through last year when we had shutdowns and things, it makes sense. But the closest thing that I can think of that my husband and I have got to is when we go to South by Southwest in Austin, like for 4 or 5 days, and we're like, okay, let's not spend any money on food or drinks because everything is for free, kind of thing. Anyway,
yeah.
We have a little bit of a competition as to, who can find the coolest kind of, food or drink or, whatever it might be. So, but that's only a very short time. There's a question here, Lee, about the impact of your kind of personal relationship and working as husband and wife. So, and I think, Lee, you've got sort of Sachi, I know she's got different strengths and characteristics to you, and you're sort of the person that's probably a bit more out the front, business development. So can you share a bit about, how you work together, in the business and in whatever you want to sort of share about your relationship outside of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, that's one of the things about the book is people have said, like, I just want to read more about you and Sachi. I want to hear more about your relationship. Sachi is a huge part of everything we do. We make decisions collaboratively. She is really is like more of the executive. Like, I'm the creative person. I have the ideas, but she's the one who actually does a lot of the heavy lifting. And I say that ideas have to get through the Sachi filter before we can actually move on. But I think that she was the driving force, I think, in making, our lifestyle and our happiness a priority early on. I think we realized that being a couple that works together, if you're not deliberate about your business strategy and your business decisions, you might find that the business actually impacts your personal relationship. And we thought that if we weren't careful with Common Craft's opportunities, we could go down a road where we could lose it all. Like, we might not have a successful business or a successful marriage. And that was a risk that we just didn't want to take. So that was the reason we constrained Common Craft and only pursued very specific opportunities, was to try to keep those things in balance, where we could have a happy home life as a married couple, as well as work together. Even today, Common Craft is something we do together all the time, whether we might not be sitting in a computer, but it's always a discussion. It's always something we're talking about. And it's always, we're walking dogs or we're cooking dinner. It's just what we talk about. It's like any couple. There's these recurring subjects that are always coming up, and Common Craft is that for us. And thankfully, we're both passionate about it. It's not something that's a bad thing. And we're dedicated to doing it for the long term. I think that that passion and happiness is important for sustainability.
Yeah, now I'll just ask the audience if they've got any questions that they wanted to put into the question chat box. There's a couple more there. But you mentioned really early on, Lee, about, you guys made a decision about valuing your time, your health, your lifestyle, time with family and so on. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What hours are you guys working now, and what does your, week sort of look like? And I know that you've just recently moved house and you've been building a new place, because I saw it on Instagram story.
Yeah. Yeah. That is one of the things that we really value about the way that Common Craft is structured, is we have some flexibility. I said the last year or so has been really strange for everyone for a lot of different reasons, but for us, we were in this process of moving and building a house, and that made that was like a second job in a lot of ways. So it did put some strain on our time. But I think because of the membership working the way that it does with Common Craft, it's a renewing annual membership. And for a lot of the members, they've been members for years. And we're very fortunate that we don't personally have to put time in every time that renewal comes up. That it's just as long as they still have access to the videos, they keep paying to have that access. So I'm often motivated to work more than, as much as anyone else. Even if there's not a connection to making money directly, every video we make these days that's an original video, it just goes into our library. There's no price. There's no prize for finishing that video. It just gets added to the best of the things. So I feel like my work on a day-to-day basis is really about supporting our members, working, on marketing, making sure the website's working nicely, but also continuing to create content that is a reason people stay members. But when the time comes for us to go do house stuff, Common Craft allows for us, thankfully, to be able to step away for a while and then come back and dip in as we need to keep things on the track, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And how often are you adding like fresh content to your membership site?
The last year, it hasn't been quite as much. We used to do about one video per month. That's gone down to about 8 a year lately, but we're going to ramp that back up soon. The videos do take some time. Some are longer than others, but it is a process getting a video done for sure.
Mm-hmm. There's a question here. Where do you see the business model going into the future? Do we expect it to evolve again? And is there any early signs as to feed towards?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that we've always made it a priority to make videos that are timeless, that are not about this version of software or something that's specific to a date. For instance, we once started work on a video that explained the Great Recession that happened in 2008. And we quickly realized that as soon as we made the video, we turned on the news and news came out that made the video out of date. And we realized okay, we can't do news. We have to do things that are somewhat timeless. So my hope is that our videos will continue to be valuable over time, even as things change, because we're still talking about big ideas, context. I think video will continue to be a big thing. I'm seeing more videos working without sound. I think we're a lot of times working now on a mobile phone, and you can't necessarily listen to a video in the middle of waiting at the doctor's office, for instance. So I think videos are starting to include not only closed captioning, but visual words on the screen that tell the story, that work with or without sound. And I think that's valuable. I think it's valuable for accessibility for people with hearing impairments, but it's also just makes a video more accessible to people who might not have a quiet place to listen to a video. It's just
and I guess, there's also been the rise of audio, like platforms like Clubhouse and that sort of thing too.
Oh, yeah.
Video, so sort of going the other way as well. I don't know if you're watching that or thinking about how that impacts.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I do have a Clubhouse membership, but I've never really used it. I've listened to it a couple of times. I think it's fascinating. We're so focused on education and helping teachers both use videos in the classroom, but also develop skills of making their own videos. So that's one of the things that I think is just becoming easier and easier from, even like I said, from using PowerPoint or Keynote. And there's a lot of products out there that do make it easy to make a video. And I'm always fascinated with how that is evolving. Because I think what we saw here in the US, at least, is with so many teachers working from home and doing meetings or classrooms on Zoom, that a lot of times they needed to sort of flip the classroom so that they would make a video and have the students watch the video outside of a Zoom call and then come into Zoom to talk about it. And making those videos is a time-consuming thing. And the easier that is, I think the easier it is for educators. And I think we all want educators to be able to have both the resources and the time and the know-how for that to work for them, because it's essential.
Yeah, and I guess over time you've gone from, broader, probably more tech companies, down to then how that applies in an education situation.
Yeah.
Aaron's got a question here, and he says the ability to say no is a learned skill. And, and you said no to some massive brands. So how long did it take to learn that, to sort of do that in a diplomatic, polite, but to be clear about, what you will do, you won't do?
Yeah, I struggled. I did not like, I don't like saying no anytime, but I do think that is a learned skill. I think Aaron's right that with experience comes comfort, and knowing that, yes, you might be saying no, but like you said, it comes with how you do it. And I think one of the things that we learned was just being honest and direct about the situation, and to make the point that this is not a judgment of the potential relationship with you. This is simply logistic. This is logistic. We just are a two-person company and we can't do it all. Therefore, we can't do this right now. Maybe we can talk again about it later. But I've come to see no as saying no as something that's difficult, but something that does become easier, but something that also teaches you. I think you learn a lot by saying no, and being able to see that it might hurt in the short term, or it might feel like leaving money on the table, but it also prevents potential waste. That by saying no, you leave open opportunities, and that over time, those opportunities can become even more selective. And maybe you start to say no with more confidence because you have a feeling or a gut feeling about where that relationship might go or not. It's not easy. And I've tried, this is true for your personal life as well. I think that a lot of Big Enough is about the value of your time, and seeing time as a resource that you can manage and design around. And sometimes that means telling friends and family no, to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I need some time to whatever, work on the house, to do my art, to mow the lawn, whatever. And again, it's hard, but I think it's one of the secrets to getting your time under your control.
Now, Lee, I think we're coming towards the end of the chat, so I'll just see if there's any more questions that people want to put in. But, the title of the book is called Big Enough, and then it's got like a bit of a subtitle, Building a Business That Scales with Your Lifestyle. Yes, and we can be like snap. But what are some top tips about how you would say in a practical way you build a business that scales with your lifestyle?
I think, as I mentioned before, intellectual property, owning what you create is a big thing. It's not always easy to turn that into a business, but I think understanding that anything that you create, and I assume that the Australian perspective on copyright is very similar to the US. In the US, at least, if I draw a picture of a dog on a piece of paper, I own that copyright by default. I don't have to file it with anyone. It is my copyright. And that's true with songs and art and videos and whatever else. So seeing that as something that is a resource that you might be able to, if someone is interested to buy a copy of that from you is important. I think really being in touch with what you value. If you value free time, if you value flexibility and a sense of independence, are you willing to trade the potential for more income to have more of that? If you could have a little bit less income, but more time, then that's a trade-off that maybe you're willing to make. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize that option is there, because I think it is a trade-off kind of situation. You can't really have it all. And being in touch with what really makes you happy, like what really, at the end of the day, you want out of life. And I think we realized that we love to make money, but we also wanted a life that we felt like we were in control of. And that's part of the reason we designed things the way we did.
Excellent. And I think there's just a couple of other things that I would sort of pick up, like the fact that you've had, so how many years is a business now? How many years has a business been going for in total?
Well, I started as a consultant in 2003, but everything changed in 2007 when we started making videos.
Yeah, so over that time, you've had like so many different business models that you've kind of like tried out with. So I think that's like a massive sort of takeaway, about evolving products and services. And it seems like a lot of those products and services have kind of like been informed by your customer, as well as your own research, but it's evolved over time. You've tried out different, business models. You've now got the monthly renewal membership, the annual renewal membership. So you've got that ongoing, it's not exactly passive income, but you know what I mean? You've got that ongoing base.
Yeah.
Yeah. As an ultimate optimist, I found it interesting when you said about seeing some opportunities as threats, because I always think about opportunity and more opportunity. So that
yeah.
That's
well,
great.
I'm an optimist for sure. So it's that's the yin and yang of Sachi and I. Is I'm the more optimistic. She's very optimistic, but she's also the person who speaks up about the risks that she sees. And I don't want to hear that. I don't want to talk about it. Can't we just brainstorm for a while before we talk about the risks? So that's a common dynamic with us.
And I think the Monitorium is a good thing. Like, sometimes people have to have that in place, but to practice that kind of responsibility, if I can do a year, so like short spurt.
Yeah, like a training. Yeah, I think one of the things that I'd like to note about that is that for entrepreneurs and people who are self-employed, getting a handle on your personal finances is really important, because if the income that comes from your business changes and you have an expensive lifestyle, then that's not sustainable. And that if you have the ability to change your lifestyle to maybe weather a storm, and that's what happens with the Monitorium, is you can kind of weather a storm by switching a switch off and changing your lifestyle, then your company doesn't have to be a gangbusters, huge, billion-dollar company for you to live the life you want to live. That there's a connection between your personal spending and the amount of success you need from the company to live the life you want. So that, I think there's some financial responsibility that goes along with that.
Excellent. And any other final points that you wanted to share with us, Lee?
No, not that I can think of right now. I really appreciate the folks coming on today, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. We will catch you later. I hope you found some really insightful takeaways. Definitely I did, and that's why I wanted to have this chat with Lee. And there's lots of comments saying how people enjoyed it so much. Now, Lee, I have this thing where we do like a selfie photo. I normally do it in real life, but obviously we can't do it in real life. So can you hold up the book, and I'll hold up the book and see if I can.
Sure. I love that.
That. Awesome. No worries. Thanks so much. It's fantastic that you agreed to speak with us, Lee. I really appreciate it. Say hi to Sachi from Australia.
Will do.
And thanks, everybody. We'll catch you again soon. See you later.
Yeah. Thanks, Wendy. Bye guys.